Today is January 2026, 6th January 2026. Actually, if you're watching the legacy news, right, you see Nicolas Maduro in a federal holding cell in New York. The State Department has issued a press release. The UN is holding an emergency session because we don't know what should we think of it. Is it right? Is it wrong? History is being written, sure. But according to your feed that you've been checking out frequently, none of that is actually happening. You probably haven't even heard that the UN is meeting right now. If you're on X or on TikTok, right now you aren't seeing a coup. You aren't seeing like that intervention. You're seeing a roast. You're seeing deepfakes of Maduro crying in a puddle of baby oil, right? You're seeing Super Bigote cartoon character twerking for US Marines. You're seeing, a geopolitical earthquake filtered through a Snapchat lens. So, welcome to the meme coup. Yeah, today we're not talking about military strategy. That's not what this podcast is about. We're talking about the media theory of what we're witnessing, what's happening right now. Because a few days ago, the United States didn't just execute a regime change, they executed a whole vibe shift. And they realized that in 2026, you don't need to matter a dictator. You just need to make him cringe. The revolution, old saying, will not be televised. It will be deepfaked. It will be remixed and it will be scrolled past in 3 seconds. Let's do this. Sawadee and welcome to another episode here for the Fun Report, Mindful Media and Communication. And mindful, the communication, it is at points. Different ways maybe than we expected, but it is. So let's break it down as we always do here on the pod. I'm bringing you a few media and communication theories to explain what's happening right now. What is the US doing? Right. So first of all, what we can definitely see is a theory that we discussed so many times on this podcast, and it always comes back again, is Jean Baudrillard, right? Simulation, simulacra. What is real? What is not real? What is fake? What is real to us? Right now, the flood of AI-generated images of like Maduro in that Nike jumpsuit, right? It's ridiculous how many of those have been everywhere, right? You've seen them too on your feed. So in comes that theory of the simulacra by Jean Baudrillard, right? So he talks about that we live in a hyper reality, that we don't really know what's real, what's not real, and we might not even care. Because for us, what becomes real is what we assign value to. So if we assign value to all those images of Maduro in this Nike jumpsuit, and we're like, yep, that's just real to me right now, then that is what we will base our future thoughts and actions on. So the real picture is the one, let's assume it is the one where he's on board of that warship, right? Captured. Right, okay. But then there are like a million deepfakes of Maduro. Yeah, the crazy ones where he's a DJ and stuff like this, yes, but also some where he's just standing around in like weird spaces, places, and whatnot. And then we're like, okay, cool, I see those. That could be real. I'm not sure. Maybe it is real. Yeah, and then if we start to think like that and it lets slowly, influence us, or we let it influence us, then it becomes real to us. So that's hyperreality creeping into our actual life, making it like, a very blurred version of what reality once was. And also, let's be honest, right? That real picture of Maduro in handcuffs is kind of boring. It's not fun. It looks like bureaucracy. But the fake video of him crying baby oil, for example, even though we know it's fake, it's emotionally more satisfying. It captures the truth of the US victory better than facts. So because we know he's sad, we know he should be crying. So us seeing him crying, even if it's exaggerated, even if it's crying baby oil, because it's funny, it feels more real to us, even though it's fake, because it captures the feelings, the emotions that we have, the vibe, much better than the simple picture did. Okay? So the takeaway here from that first theory of hyperreality is that the US, yes, they won the short war on the ground, if you will, but the internet won the war for the narrative, by replacing the human reality with digital, parody, if you will, caricature, if you will, and the consumer of that content thinks, hey, that's way better suited to what I want to see, I like it, and even though we know that's made up, it still influences our lives, the way we think about it, and hence it's hyper real. Okay. Second part, the second theory I bring you is, and I'm just making up this name right now, and I'll explain in a second. Weaponized cringe. Okay, and the actual theory is called context collapse. Okay. Yeah, the event we're talking about right now, when the context collapses, when we weaponize cringe, and it's perfect example here, Maduro/Diddy, right? Apparently Maduro's in the same jail as Diddy's in, right? So it's the crossover no one's been waiting for, but everyone is happy about. Okay? So the internet right now collectively decided to link both together, right? The Venezuelan dictator and P. Diddy, Sean Diddy Combs. Both scandals coming together. Nice. So, that theory called context collapse by Danah Boyd is about how social media, flattens contexts. So usually contexts are very important in human interaction, right? So if I say something to you, the context really matters. Am I happy? Am I sad? What did you just do? And so on. So context always matters. But social media flattens the context, because if we see something, we don't know what's the context behind what we see, right? So that applies to what you see of your friends, what you see of your teachers, your family, and so on. But it also applies to what do we see when it comes to gossip, politics, war, comedy too. And it's all one single stream, no context around. You keep scrolling, you see war, you see comedy, you see gossip, you see war, you see politics. It's all stripped of its context. So in the old world, like a coup, what it basically is, right? Like overthrowing the government is serious news, right? And celebrity gossip was trash. And you can distinctly see where it's from. Like one is in the yellow press, the other one is like on serious news, and so on. They barely ever touched. In 2026, these are just two different skins in the same algorithm, right? You scroll your algorithm, you scroll your feed, there's Maduro, there's P. Diddy, there's a mashup meme of both of them. So, the context is gone. So, and by associating Maduro with the freak-offs and the baby oil, the US isn't just defeating him, they're also taking away his political dignity. And I'm by no means saying Maduro is a great guy. Definitely not. We know much better. But I'm just saying, like, that's part of the communication warfare, if you will. Okay? You cannot be like what he wants to be, a revolutionary martyr. That's what Maduro wants to be seen as. But if you're like a tabloid joke, and tabloid is a very old word here that Gen Z might not even be familiar with. If you're a tabloid joke, you can't be like, this revolutionary martyr. And that's a great way of stripping this away from him and just making people laugh at him. Okay. Now in comes the third one. As I'm checking the time to make sure I'm not going over time today. In comes the third one, which is the Greenland distraction. They're not out of nowhere, but like out of left field in this context, because as they have captured Maduro, Trump's like, oh yeah, we still want Greenland. Completely, again, context, right? Completely gone, completely different. So, and people associated with the White House leaked like the Greenland Purchase map, right? The wife of that advisor, what's his name, Stephen Miller, shared like this picture on X where like Greenland is like an American flag. And it's at the same time as the coup, as like taking out Maduro. You're like, what you saying? Are you saying you're gonna kidnap someone from Greenland? Are you gonna like invade Greenland? What, huh? What do you mean right now? Right, so and this, of course, will cause a diplomatic rift with NATO. And we know that the US is not a big fan of NATO right now anyways. Trump hates NATO. He says that it's stupid. No one needs it. They're just taking American money. That's what he says. So that's, of course, also by design. It always looks like it's just like, throwing out stuff. But while it might be the case, they also know when to place those ideas. Release the Epstein files. So that and they know why to do certain things at certain times. And here's again a theory we discussed many times here in the podcast, but now it also fits like the political scene, the Society of the Spectacle, right, by Guy Debord, telling us that a spectacle is a tool of pacification. So it means it replaces lived reality, what you live, what you go through, with images of a reality, with seeing something. So we're seeing something spectacular. So if I see something spectacular, I don't need to live through it. So the Greenland story right now is basically what we would call like the dead cat strategy. Look that up. It's absurd, it's loud, it's visual thanks to all the memes, and it's a great distraction from everything else. Like before we can even ask, like, hey, what about what's going to happen next in Venezuela, and what about those Epstein files actually? And you're like, what, Greenland? Are you crazy? Right? So you think like, why would you say that? But then when you analyze it, you're like, that's why you say it, right? So it does make complete sense. So it forces the public and NATO to debate the meme, buying Greenland or just taking an island, rather than looking at the reality of imperialism that's happening right now, that the US is like very heavily apparently promoting again. Yeah, back to the 1800s or whatever. Early 1900s. And so the US right now is using that spectacle, and the Trump administration has been great at that all the time. They're using the spectacle to fracture the narrative. To hit it, to like, break it here and there a little bit. So basically making it impossible for anyone to focus on the human cost of intervention in Venezuela, to really ask the serious questions, because you're distracted with all the other BS that's going on. The memes of Maduro, the memes of Diddy and Maduro, then talking about Greenland and talking about, oh, Colombia could be next, threatening the president. Like, what? There's so many construction sites made up so that you think, wow, look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this, but no one's focusing on the real issue at hand. What's next with Venezuela? So it sounds all a bit, or it looks like a bit out there and weird in what they're doing, but actually what they're doing from a communications point of view makes complete sense. Distracting us, being loud, being noisy, being weird, so that we think about all those weird things. And even NATO has to talk about Greenland now. Probably eventually, like, I mean, Greenland said, hey, if he's being serious, then that's the end of NATO. And you're like, yo, Greenland, he's triggering us right now. But we have to address it. Damn it. So good job triggering that. Nice. So before we go too much about that, and seriously, I mean, we have so many episodes on the Trump administration. I think it's enough for a little bit, hopefully. So, what's the lesson of what just happened in Venezuela and with Maduro and so on, right? It's that the scariest thing is that, from my point of view, the government, you thought that the scariest thing would be that the government would listen to you, wiretap you, so to speak. But it's not the scariest thing. The scariest thing is that they make you a joke. They make you someone no one believes anymore. No one takes serious. No one cares about, maybe even. In the old world, like, dissidents were silenced, right? In the new world, they're, what I said earlier, remixed. That the empire doesn't want your fear anymore. They want your love. Because as long as you're laughing at the meme, you aren't looking at the blood. The United States has become the ultimate troll state right now. And others doing that too. So I'm not just hating on the US. Everybody else is doing it. Right now they're just doing this like on a grand stage. And somehow all of us are liking their posts. So what do you think? Again, am I exaggerating? Am I just a hater? Or do you feel the same? Shout out in the comments. That would be nice to hear. Like, what do you think? How do you feel about it? If you're American, if you're not American too, because I mean, clearly they're thinking about everybody else too. If you're from Greenland, I would also like to hear what you're thinking there. Of course, shout out in the comments on Spotify or on social media at FunkedPod. Like, share, subscribe. That would be fantastic so that we reach a wider audience and have bigger discussions. Until then, you know it. Stay safe, take care, stay sane. Don't get fooled by all the memes, and we talk soon. Sorry, Kat.